This is Ridgeway Nursing Home in Surbiton, Surrey. Its brochure promises a warm and friendly environment for its elderly residents, a home from home. We went undercover to discover the true picture.
I've seen conditions like this many times in many homes. It's all too common, I'm afraid.
Tonight, the London programme goes behind the closed doors of private nursing homes.
You've got no right!
Greystones Nursing Home in Dulwich, South London. Stanley Huckstep was initially impressed with Greystones when his 73-year-old wife Grace went to live there in March last year. Grace had suffered 2 strokes and her family could no longer look after her at home. Stanley visited her every day.
I used to take her out and round to the park, which was behind Dulwich Library. I used to sit there with her, feed the birds until lunchtime. Then I used to bring her back again.
Grace's family grew concerned as her general health seemed to deteriorate. Her granddaughter Lisa was worried that she was not being properly cared for.
She was given incontinence pads. The frequency of changing them was not enough. She was left for long periods of time sitting in urine. We could count 40 minutes, an hour at a time. We'd call a nurse. It wasn't changed. We actually changed it ourselves. When she was admitted, she had very superficial leg ulcers. There was nothing on her feet, but within weeks this had deteriorated as well.
But no one was prepared for what came next. On June the 27th, Stanley received a phone call from a staff member at Greystones.
She says, Stan, she says, we've taken Grace's bandages off her feet and it's alive with maggots. It was alive with maggots. I said, you sure? She said, yes, I'm sure, I'm positive. I know a maggot when I see one. And they're more or less eating her flesh away. I said, no. She said, yes. She said, yes.
The nursing records from Greystones confirm Stanley's story, showing that gangrene was also found on Grace's foot.
At this time, the foot ulcers were very extensive and they were down to the tendons. Yet one nurse said they were actually improving. Within these 3 weeks, a doctor wasn't called once to see the feet.
Grace was seen by a doctor during his routine rounds at Greystones, but he was not made aware of the state of her feet, which were covered in bandages. She was finally admitted to King's College Hospital on July the 24th after developing acute heart problems.
On her admission to King's College, the hospital were absolutely appalled at the state of her feet. And after consulting one of the surgeons, they thought the only option was double amputation.
Grace died of her heart condition 2 weeks later. On April the 8th, at the inquest into her death, Southwark coroner Sir Montague Levine recorded a verdict of death by natural causes. He said he was satisfied with the general nursing care at Greystones, but he criticised the home for not admitting Grace to hospital earlier so her feet could be treated. The London programme wanted to speak to Greystones about Mrs. Huckstep's treatment, but despite prolonged correspondence, they declined to comment on her case. Business is booming for private nursing homes. More people than ever before are turning to the private sector as the National Health Service withdraws from long-term care for the elderly. In the past 3 years, an estimated 15,000 geriatric beds have been cut. The claim is that nursing homes provide a friendly environment for those patients who need round-the-clock care. But our investigation has revealed that the reality can be very different. Ridgeway is home to 46 elderly people. It costs up to £400 a week to live here. The publicity brochure talks of an atmosphere of traditional grandeur, landscaped gardens and home-baked cakes and biscuits. But the London programme was contacted by 3 former members of staff and 2 relatives of residents who complained about conditions at the home. We decided to investigate. London programme researcher Danielle Graham became a care assistant at Ridgeway. She carried a secret camera concealed in a handbag to record what happened.
I started my job in the nursing home at 9 a.m. on the 4th of November. You learn 2 things very quickly as a care assistant. Firstly, that it's hard work, it's low paid, it's dirty and it's back-breaking. The second thing you learn is that life for the residents is pretty grim.
Ridgeway employs only the legal minimum of staff. This means that the residents are washed, dressed and fed in a conveyor belt system. Getting through the work is the priority and leaves little time for niceties.
Long face. Don't only waist. Don't pinch. She called me, don't pinch!
This woman is being washed and dressed in full view of another patient. It's common practice at Ridgeway, but it breaks health authority guidelines. Pat Ramdani is a nursing homes inspector. She's also chair of the Society of Home Inspectors. We asked her to view our tape.
Really and truly, just because you're elderly, you do not lose the need to privacy when you're being washed and dressed, having your knickers changed, your stockings put on, whatever, any more than you and I would. They still want that.
Catherine Martin worked as a care assistant at Ridgeway for 9 months last year.
The care is often simply more like a factory process. You get them up, wash them as quickly as possible, put them into the dining room. It's more of a factory process than actually care, which is what the people are there for.
Most of the time, our researcher left the secret camera rolling while she worked elsewhere.
Now, it's actually quite awkward to wash and dress a patient who is immobile and in most cases doubly incontinent. I found that I was washing about one patient to every 5 of the other staff. It didn't take me long to figure out why this was. They were actually giving them very cursory washes and were handling them quite roughly.
It's bedtime and one woman has been left stranded at the top of some stairs.
Yeah, you right?
No, I don't like being left here like this.
Oh,
Where's that fella? He's left me. I'm right on the edge of this. Oh!
All right, my love, all right.
I'm being left here on the top of those stairs.
How long have you been waiting here, just sitting at the top of the stairs then?
About a quarter of an hour.
Oh, don't.
I'm so frightened, dear.
Oh. I'll get somebody, okay, to come and help
Yes,
you.
will you get somebody?
Where's Rajan? Woman sitting at the top of the stairs in a wheelchair.
Unable to lift the wheelchair alone, Danielle went to find help.
Can somebody let her down the stairs though? She's just sitting there. Oh, this woman, look. Leave her. We just leave him like that until we finish.
The care worker comes up the stairs and sees the woman, but passes by without helping.
She's going to stay there. Why? Because we're going first, we're going first to finish the other side, then we come to this side. Right. Can't just put her in a room at least.
Then Danielle makes another attempt to get someone to help her.
He's crying, saying, "Can she go into her room?" The one that lives in number 14.
Yeah. Leave her with you afterwards, because we are starting this side.
But again, the request for help is refused. We showed the tape to Pat Ramdani.
We'd be bored and we'd be irritated if we were left in a corridor. But that old lady didn't seem to me to know where she was. She was totally dependent on other people, and she didn't know when that assistance was coming back. It was the uncertainty which was the most unkind part of that.
The residents are quite often subdued. They do what they're told when they're told, and they're often pathetically grateful for even the smallest favour. I once got a walking frame for one of the residents, and she actually cried with gratitude, saying that none of the other staff had time to get it for her. I often saw staff bully and torment the patients. They were also very rough with them, and verbal abuse is commonplace.
The lady sitting at the table is waiting to be taken into the day room after lunch. All she wants is to be helped onto her walking frame and for someone to carry her handbag.
Can you take my handbag?
Yeah, Roger.
Please.
Hold on.
You take my handbag. I can walk there.
If you cry, I'm not going to do. I'm going to do the last one. Just shut.
Why?
Just stay in. Clean your nose first. Come to pick you in a minute. If you shout, I'm going to pick your last one.
I didn't know I was shouting.
Yeah, I'm not.
Soon, another carer arrives.
Little by little.
Can you take me next?
No.
The woman continues to wait. Soon, a nurse arrives.
No. Something's broken.
At last, it looks as though help is at hand.
My handbag.
but in fact the nurse humiliates her.
Here, Natalie, watch this.
Oh, don't do that, dear. Where's your friend? Come along, dear. Bring me. Bring me.
She doesn't know when her turn is going to come. It's all at the whim and fancy, and if she upsets the member of staff, she's not got any guarantee at all that he's going to bring her frame and enable her to move. No. So there again, it's putting her at a disadvantage and making her watchful that she doesn't upset the staff. That, to my mind, is backwards way round.
Martha Carey is a nurse. She worked at Ridgeway for 6 months last year.
While I was working at Ridgeway, I did see some nurses being cruel to some of the residents. Again, it depended on who the resident was, whether or not they would complain, and who the nurse was.
What sort of cruelty?
Just pulling about, smacks, being hit if they didn't do as they were told, just general cruelty.
This patient is very ill and doubly incontinent.
Right, I'll do the arms, you do the legs.
Hang on, does this come off?
No.
It'd be better. Set your hand off. Stinking bitch. Left way, Joe, that way. Not that, yeah?
Right.
She ain't got long. Don't touch. Don't touch.
I know,
My first impression of that is one of really quite profound distress that two young people can treat an elderly lady with such lack of regard for her as a person. The lady's able to hear, she's able to express herself, she's able to tell them that they're hurting her. They are not listening at all to what they're doing to that lady. Why they're not listening, I don't know. They're also not listening to or thinking about the lady who is the onlooker to all this, the lady at the back in the corner sitting, watching and listening, and must be really her worst nightmare that she might need such care herself.
3 months ago, this report on nursing misconduct was published by the UKCC, the regulatory body for nursing staff. It revealed that complaints against staff working in private nursing homes have risen nationally by 133% over the last 3 years. Its findings are supported by care workers with experience of several South East homes.
On my first day at the nursing home, I saw a nurse come into the room and she undressed a man so violently and aggressively that the man went into a spasm. I tried to calm the man down by putting my arm around him to console him, and I was told that I was getting too emotionally involved with him, and she literally pulled my arm away from him.
I've seen many times rough handling. I mean, when they're elderly, their skin gets papery, and to be manhandled and pulled about and plumped on the commode and left there. I mean, I remember one old gent that was tied to the commode to stop him getting up, and I found it horrendous.
According to the law, nursing homes must have a qualified nurse on duty 24 hours a day. GPs regularly visit homes, but it's a nursing staff's responsibility to monitor a patient's progress and to decide when to refer them to a doctor or to a local hospital. However, the London programme has discovered cases where nurses apparently failed to recognise medical conditions which needed urgent treatment. Wilkinson House Nursing Home in Peckham, South London. Marion Fawcett's mother, Irene Fuller, came to live here in March this year.
My mother was almost 78 years old, and she was a diabetic and had a heart condition, heart failure, and a serious lung condition. However, she was very bright in herself and looking forward to going into Wilkinson House.
On her third night, Mrs. Fuller fell, cutting her head, but no one called a doctor.
I started to have misgivings about Wilkinson House because there was a lack of oxygen for my mother, that oxygen hadn't been properly provided, and there had been a great panic to get more oxygen for her. The nebuliser mask had been broken and faulty ever since my mother arrived in there. That faulty mask was shared between other patients in the home.
Marion visited her mother every day. On the 6th day, she arrived at the home in the early evening.
And the room was all in darkness, so when I turned on the light, the curtains were drawn, but the windows were wide open, and the icy wind was blowing in, and my mother was lying on the bed, just in a little pink slip, with no duvet cover that was folded neatly at the end of the bed, and my mother was lying in a pool of diarrhoea and blood. And she was blue and all contorted like this, as though, and shaking as though she was in some sort of convulsion.
Mrs. Fuller was rushed to King's College Hospital, where she was found to be suffering from extremely high blood sugar, lack of oxygen and pressure sores. Irene Fuller died 8 days later on March the 23rd. In a statement, Excelsior, the owners of Wilkinson House, blamed the problems with the oxygen supply on a lack of communication between the nursing home, Mrs. Fawcett's GP and the hospital. They told us, in limited respects, the home's procedures could be and have since been improved.
While I was working at Ridgeway, I witnessed countless examples of neglect and carelessness. The smell of some residents told you that some of them were not changed for long periods of time. There's one resident in particular I'm thinking of who was actually red raw from sitting in her urine for long periods of time.
Last January, a 78-year-old female patient was severely scalded in a bath of hot water at Ridgeway.
She once had an accident or was pushed, nobody really knows what happened, into a bath of boiling hot water, and she scalded her bottom and her hands. And after the event, she was left to wander around the home with just a vest on, with all these pots exposed.
The nurses should have checked the temperature of the bathwater. After the incident, it was at least 8 hours before the woman was rushed to hospital, where she remained in a burns unit for 6 weeks.
It changed her completely. When she returned to Ridgeway, she was very scared of nursing staff, especially new people. And to see that happen to such a lovely lady was a real shame.
In June, a similar scalding incident happened here at Sydney House Nursing Home in Whitechapel, East London. 2 care assistants are accused of putting 90-year-old Rachel Blitz in a bath of scalding water. Mrs. Blitz died in hospital 2 weeks later. The care assistants are currently on bail awaiting trial for manslaughter. The vast majority of staff in nursing homes are unqualified care assistants. The job is demanding. It requires patience and dedication. Many residents need almost constant care. Yet most homes do not offer any formal training, and some fail to carry out even the most basic checks before recruiting staff.
It was very easy to get into Ridgeway. I rang and said I was looking for a job, filled out an application form, met Mrs. Rye, the owner, and I was given work within days. I did offer references, but they weren't followed up. I was told that for the first 5 days I wouldn't be paid. It was to be my so-called training period.
The average care assistant at Ridgeway earns £3.50 per hour. Staff turnover is high. Elaine Murphy is Professor of Psychogeriatrics at Guy's Hospital. She wasn't surprised that standards were so low at Ridgeway.
This situation arises where staff are given no training, where the manager has no philosophy of care, and the situation is passed on from one care staff to another. It's very easy for new staff to be sucked into a culture in which they really don't understand or see that what is going on is wrong.
Some homes do offer proper training. This is part of a 6-month course at Meadbank Nursing Home in Battersea. Here, Sister Marjorie Molly is demonstrating how not to feed a patient.
Got teed it all up now, haven't you? Look at the mess you're making all the time. Look at your clothes and everything.
Later, Marjorie asked what was wrong.
Rose, what did you see?
Well, you didn't ask her what she wanted for breakfast, or you didn't tell her what you was giving her, you just put it straight in her mouth. You was talking to...
It is very, very motivating for staff. They love it.
It gives them very much a focus on what they're doing. It makes them very, very motivated, and it enables them, obviously, to deliver better care.
Good morning, Mrs. Brown. How are you?
Meadbank encourages a warm relationship between patients and staff. Care assistants receive training in communication skills. Other homes are not so committed.
How was that?
Greystones, where Grace Huckstep lived, advertised in foreign newspapers to recruit care assistants. This advertisement is from a German newspaper.
Opportunity for a stay in London. Women between 18 and 50 years old wanted to care for elderly people. No experience necessary.
There is an official system for making complaints about staff or conditions in private nursing homes. But many residents are too frightened or simply unable to speak out. Even if relatives are unhappy, they fear that complaining may make things worse for their loved ones. It's the job of nursing home inspectors to maintain standards and detect abuse. But the current system of inspection can allow bad homes to slip through the net.
And I would like now to look in your fridge because there are things that...
This is nursing home inspector Halwyn Smith visiting a home in South London.
OK, I notice you've got everything covered, which is what we expect. And do you check...
She's satisfied that this home is providing an excellent service to residents.
I've been here since January.
Right.
And I can honestly say I settled in straight away and I feel happy here. I mean, I get my off.
By law, private nursing homes must be inspected twice a year. But according to a recent report by the Royal College of Nursing, the number of inspectors, and therefore the extent of the inspections, can vary enormously from one health authority area to another.
The findings of the report showed us what we had believed before was the case, that different health authorities employed different numbers of staff, and that didn't bear any relation to the numbers of nursing homes or beds.
This variation in the number of inspectors means that certain nursing homes will be inspected more thoroughly and more often than others. For example, in Croydon there are 2 full-time inspectors for 950 beds, whereas in Merton, Sutton and Wandsworth there's just 1 full-time inspector for over 2,000 beds. Local health authorities set standards for nursing care. These too can vary from one area to another. Experts say the system must be overhauled.
We would like to see national standards guaranteed, and national standards which are upheld as a mandatory requirement. That can only be achieved if you have a set of national standards across the country.
In all, I worked a total of 5 shifts at Ridgeway, and it was a sobering experience. In fairness, I must say that I did work with some excellent nursing and care staff, but they were very much in the minority. My lasting impression is of the residents sitting for hours, slumped in a day room, with loud pop music blaring.
We asked Ridgeway for an interview, but they refused. Owner, Mrs. Rye, tried to prevent us from filming the home.
Yeah, London programme.
Sorry?
London programme.
Well, I don't want you to take...
They did, however, issue a statement. They said they believed the footage had been concocted. They added, following an unannounced inspection of the home by Kingston and Richmond Health Authority, the Health Authority issued a very satisfactory report. They also said, we have received a number of excellent testimonials from families of past residents. And they told us they had now invited the Health Authority to re-inspect the home. We also handed our evidence to the Health Authority, who told us, we're appalled at the new evidence which has been brought to light by this film, and we will be conducting a full and immediate investigation into practices at the home. If the results of our investigation are not fully satisfactory, we will take the necessary steps to close it.
I would say from a resident point of view, it's not really like home from home, which is what the brochures indicate that it should be. I wouldn't put anybody in there.